So when we try and understand the teachings of any religion or philosophy, we need to put it in our own framework. Often I've had these thoughts and I've put it in what I believe is my own language. But it's something I really believe, that I've had insight on, and often I think I don't care if it's traditional Theravadan Buddhism. This is what I know to be true for myself, and half thinking I'm going to be chewed out by a senior monk with my arrogance. He then turns around and says, "Oh, well done, that's called the Second Noble Truth. You may have heard of it," or something, but I've reframed it in a way that I can understand. And one thing that has helped me with understand suffering, and a few weeks ago in the group we had this discussion of dukkha, suffering, and the dissatisfaction we all had with the translation. And this isn't a particularly positive translation, but it's another way of conceptualizing it. But for me, it's worked, and thinking of these things as addiction and drugs, and it's easy to see and easy to conceptualize when you've got illegal substances, strong illegal substances. We can see the cycle of addiction. It plays out so on such a visceral level. And we see people with drug addictions, and their body has changed, their skin has changed, and their lives revolve around satisfying this craving, and it's no longer about pleasure. They're stuck in a cycle of craving and relief, and taking the drug brings them to neutral, and the craving is detrimental. So they're never in a positive state, and that's easy to conceptualize. But when I started thinking that everything was a drug, and I saw my craving for other things that weren't quite so strong as illegal drugs, like heroin or crack or whatever, but seeing that I was addicted to routine. I was addicted to eating at a particular time, or food in general, or craving sugar, and then I kept on expanding it, and I realised that addiction and craving, and where the Buddha uses the word craving, and we use the word addiction more, but if we think of drug addiction as kama tanha, craving for sense pleasure, we can then conceptualize it out, and we can think of things like bhava tanha, craving to become. So we're addicted to building our ego. We're addicted to these things, and when we can really benefit from is when we take the morality aspect out of it. We don't think of these things as bad or good. We think of them as neutral. And exploring that, we can see the root of it, and it doesn't necessarily come from a place that's morally wrong, or the idea of trying to lay on a moral compass over craving, it just doesn't seem to fit anymore the more that you explore. And for me, I notice this with reading. When I listen to uncomfortable things at work, I noticed that I started reading clickbait articles because I didn't like what I was hearing, so I distracted myself, and that was a coping mechanism for hearing uncomfortable things. It wasn't morally wrong, it wasn't morally right, it was just a very effective coping mechanism. But when we use these coping mechanisms, they turn into cravings and addictions. And I found myself reading newspaper articles at home, and just without realising I was mindlessly scrolling Reddit and clicking on every article about Donald Trump, and I needed to know this other bad thing that he said, and realised that I was craving, and I was addicted, because it started off as a coping mechanism for one thing, and then it ran away with itself, and even when I wasn't listening to uncomfortable things, I found I was still mindlessly clicking endless articles slagging off this one particular person who I'm never going to meet, who I will never influence, and it seemed pointless and futile, and I just realised that I was because I took the morality out of it, I took the intention out of it. I didn't intend on becoming addicted. I was just sat with a laptop in front of me, and I heard something I didn't like, and I distracted myself. It's so innocent and innocuous, and it's not to say it's the worst addiction, but it's sometimes easier to look at the small things, and it's easier for us to see our small flaws and our small addictions than the major ones. So I've just spent some time this week sitting with that, especially today, not judging myself, but understanding the root of this behaviour, and realising that I shouldn't be doing it, because it's causing me suffering, it's causing me anxiety, it's causing me to forget the present moment. I'm thinking about this, I'm trying to numb my brain, when really, if I just relax into the present moment, I'd be happier and more joyful. But for whatever reason, the habit pattern of the mind is that we put our phone down for 5 minutes, for 2 minutes, for 5 hours, and we get this urge, and it's scratching an itch, and if we don't do it, we feel uncomfortable. But if we ride through that uncomfortable feeling of withdrawal, and it is withdrawal, but the same as an illegal substance, but obviously not as strong, but it's the same mechanism. When we go through that period of withdrawal, and come out the other side, we realise that we didn't need to scratch that itch, and we're happier without scratching that itch. It's just that there's this uncomfortable period between the cravings, and when we realise that we're doing the same thing as people with deep addictions, and we acknowledge it's on a more subtle level, but we realise it's the same mechanism. We don't judge people. We can't judge people negatively when we understand that they're doing the same thing as us. It may be on a larger scale, but a lot of the things that we do can be divided and reduced down to kama tanha, craving for sense pleasure, bhava tanha, craving to become. That's the craving of the ego. The craving to be a good person, a knowledgeable person, a kind person, or any other positive characteristic that we want to embody. That craving to become a better person because we're insecure of who we are as we are. We're not good enough as we are, so we crave to become more. Or the third one, vibhava tanha, we crave for annihilation. We crave to not want to crave. We don't want to be this person who craves anymore. We don't want to be this person who is trying to better ourselves, and so there's that place of craving to become and then craving to not want to become, and there's this tiny space in the middle between all of these things where we can just be, where we're good enough, where we're not craving, where we're not trying to pleasure ourselves with sense pleasures, or we're not trying to become better, or we're not trying to reject it all out of frustration. We can just sit in that tiny present moment, and this tiny platform that we can sit in that will fall off after a couple of minutes slowly with practice can become more the norm. And it's not like we'll never stop falling off, but we're getting more stable on that platform of the middle ground between those extremes of craving or addiction. But yeah, for me the real benefit was calling it an addiction, calling it a drug, and I felt more compelled to address these things when I saw it in that way. So for me, that was one way that I conceptualized craving and the suffering that arises from the craving. And that's how I started to understand the first noble truth of suffering. So I'm sure it's different for other people. I invite other people to share their conceptualizations after this talk, but that's about as much as I think I should say on the topic. So thank you for coming. Sadhu Adamodana.